Today I want to share a short story about what we went through, because a lot of you haven't heard this and you don't really see where we've come from. But what I've learned from my own experiences is how God took me and my family and took us through, I call it my college degree. We literally went through a training course or a boot camp to learn how God works in our lives. I suggest it for all of you, for everyone that calls themselves a Christian. Let God take over your life and just go with it. Because if you don't let go and you continue to control your life instead of letting God control your life, you're never going to see the blessings that he has, because you're always the one in control. If you just let go and let God do it, you're going to see him work. And that's where in our walk as a family, we experienced so many things through those years that we started this ministry up, Xclaimed Ministries, and the outreach ministry. And we experienced so many things, and I can't tell you how valuable that is in my Christian walk. I can't tell you how valuable that is for my kids to go to school and all the conversations that these kids are giving to them. And they have experienced what it is to communicate with God, to see God work in their lives. Man, that's huge. So, I think I said this last week. I've said it before, not last week. Everything that you own, if you're a believer in Jesus Christ, you become a servant of God. You become a servant that is willing. It's different than as we thought about slavery, and even today there's slavery in other countries. Slavery where somebody came and snatched you and you're going to work for them. That's different than the kind of servant that we are to God. We give ourselves over to God as a willing servant. We are willing. We want this. God has set us free as far as you get to make your own choice, and you willingly decide, I am going to give my rights, everything that I am, everything that I own, I'm giving it over to God. That's a decision that you make. And for people that don't understand that, they say, well, why would you do that? You're the one that can do this. You're the person. No, well, we can do a lot. God created us. We are awesome in our abilities. God has made us to be able to function so well, to be able to think, to be able to create. In fact, we're in his image. That's amazing. But it would be foolish for us to think that's all there is. And to be able to give our life over to a Savior who loves us so much and say, everything that I have, everything that I am, I give to you willingly. And then watch God work. That's when you see his love. Because then you find out that you gave yourself. It's not a slavery where you regret being there. It's a slavery where you're saying, I want to be here. I want to have this Father in heaven that loves me so much that I give him everything and he actually gives me more. He blesses me so much more than what I could ever do. Some people call it weak. Well, you're too weak in yourself, so you don't know that you can do these things. So you turn over to this God. And some people call it an imaginary God. Let me tell you, if it's an imaginary God, that God's really powerful, because he's done some amazing things in my family that I can tell you, for an imaginary character, he's done some wow things. Some things will just blow your mind. Whenever we first began our ministry and we really called out to God, God, we're doing this. We're going to sell our apartment building. We're going to rent out the Rose Bowl Stadium. This is what we're going to do. We're going to have one-day event, just a one-day event where people can come there and hear the gospel, and we're done. Well, you know what? The first thing that happens whenever you're called into ministry and you accept that calling, when you become a Christian, you begin this relationship with God. You're going to spend eternity with him. You're going to be in eternity with him. But there's something else. there is someone or something that does not want that to be. There was this creature, an angelic being called Lucifer. And he betrayed God. He was very jealous. Could have been jealous of us because we had our own universe, this creation that we are. We don't know what happened, but for whatever reason, he convinced a third of the angels to follow him, and then God cast them out of heaven. Well, let me tell you something. He's not going to be in eternity with the Father. He sure enough doesn't want you to be. So as soon as you label yourself as a Christian and give your life to Jesus Christ, as soon as you say, God, everything that I own is yours, every time you say that, God, I'm going to follow you, Lucifer, the devil, Satan, is out to do everything to stop you from doing that. And guess what? When you become a Christian, if you thought for one moment that now you're on the easy path, you're totally mistaken about what Christianity is. The Bible actually tells us that to follow Jesus, you must pick up your cross. Do you know what why the Bible brings out the cross? Well, Jesus is going to die on the cross. But you know what the Romans used that for? That was torture and torment and death. That was painful. That was the painful death. So this painful death, Jesus says, pick up your cross and follow me. That's what he says. He doesn't say, hey, guess what? It's going to be easy. He says, no, actually, you're going to pick up your cross, the cross of shame, to carry your cross through town in front of all the people, knowing that you're going to die. That's shameful. It's painful. You're going to be nailed to that cross. You're going to die on that cross. When the Bible tells us to pick up our cross, we're going to live a life that everybody's not going to agree with. But if you're going to be a believer in Jesus Christ, he says to pick up your cross and follow him. Whenever my wife and I, along with our family, our young family at that time, followed Jesus Christ and began this ministry, I remember the very first thing that Satan started attacking us with is our finances. The very first thing. And man, if he can hit you where your finances are, man, it'll floor you. Isn't that right? Anybody else agree with that? Huh? Finances are it, man. You hit my finances and all of a sudden my faith turns to doubt really quick. All of a sudden I start questioning, did I really do the right thing? Is God really in this? I mean, where is God in this? Why isn't God helping me? All of a sudden I get all these questions where just a week before, just a month before, I was like, oh, God's calling us a ministry. He's going to be with us. We're going to go out there and we're going to conquer the world. And as soon as Satan hits our finances, we're like, what am I going to do? Where are you, God? Right? I mean, first say, where are you, God? Well, you know what God does? He allows these things to happen. Now, there's a lot of people that go out and quote this scripture. It says, God will never allow you to take on more than you can handle. That's a lie. The Bible doesn't say that. Stop quoting that. Doesn't even make sense. The Bible says that you will not be tempted more than you can handle. Two different things. Being tempted means you can't go around and say, oh, I sinned because I was tempted so much. No, the Bible says that we are given a way out. So whenever Satan tempts you, you can find a way out by following Jesus Christ, by reading his word. He gives you a way out. You can find it. You can't go around and say, oh, I was tempted so bad I had to sin. No, you weren't. You were tempted so bad, but there was a way out. You just didn't choose it maybe. So we need to find that way out. We need to start calling on God whenever we're tempted. So will God give you more than you can handle? Let me tell you something. We know people that have been tortured to death. Guess what? That torture to death is more than they can handle. Does God allow us that? He allows Christians. Back in the days, if you read the history of the old Christian church, they were burned at the stake. Isn't that awful? That's more than I can handle. The Bible doesn't say that you won't be given more than you can handle. What he says is, while you go through it, he'll go through it with you. If you also read the history books, when those people were being burned, many of them were singing praises, hymn songs to God. That's a peace that you can't explain. That's a power that you can't explain. Whenever my family and I began this ministry, the first thing that seemed to we got attacked at was our finances. And I remember getting that right after we started doing this, all of a sudden we started getting behind on our mortgage payment for the building that we were going to sell so that we could go out and rent out the Rose Bowl Stadium. All of a sudden we're getting behind because of what? All the debt that came in all at once because of the event that we were doing. And I remember that first time that I was going to miss my mortgage payment. And my credit was perfect. It was the 700 to 800 or whatever that was on your score. Man, I was so proud of my score. And I just thought, man, I'm going to mess up my credit. I'm going to miss this payment. And I remember the week that the payment was due, my dad got this Federal Express package in the mail, and it came to me, and I saw that it said Mr. Karnick, so I took it down to my dad and left it there. And then I was driving here to church from Dana Point, and on the way home, I remember it's a 45-minute drive, and I was praying to God, saying, God, why aren't you helping me? I'm going to miss my mortgage payment. You seem to not care. You seem like you're not even in this thing. I mean, I'm doing the ministry for you. I'm selling my apartment building, but you're going to let me miss a mortgage payment and mess up my credit because my credit's the thing, right? I mean, let's get it right? I mean, you need credit. So I'm sitting there yelling at God for this entire drive home. I should write a book on how many times I've yelled at God and why he hasn't struck me down with lightning. All the way home, 45 minutes. And I get to my house, and I walk in the door. My dad's there, and he hands me that Federal Express package. He says, this isn't for me. My mortgage payment at that time was somewhere near $3,000. It was like $2,900 and some dollars. And I opened up that envelope, and it was a check made out to me for just over $3,000. When did that package come? A few days before. I'd handed it to my dad. I came to church. I drove home. I yelled at God, God, why aren't you in this? Why aren't you helping me? Where have you been? Why are you so silent on this? Where's the help when I need it? Guess what? Your help's been at the house sitting there for 2 days. You didn't open the envelope. Isn't it funny that God already took care of me? He already knew what was going to happen. He said, hey, I already got this. You don't even know. The money's there. You know where the money came from? Somebody owed me money and sent it to me. I didn't even know it was coming. And the money that they owed me was from years before. Somebody did their records, and they had to go through, and they found out some in a business, and they found out that they didn't pay me back the amount of money they owed me, so they sent the rest. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that funny how God knew that? He knew that I was going to be in that place. He knew that I was going to miss that mortgage payment. But there's still a problem with me. Because I was upset because my credit was going to go bad. You know what? God says to put him first above everything. And I'm not telling you to go out there and get bad credit. But I'm telling you, put everything in priority. God is first above everything. God is first above everything, even your precious credit. I know you want to go buy a house one day, but you know what? If it's between your credit and God, you choose God. And if what you're called to do messes up your credit, messes up your financial situation, you trust God. If God really called you to do it, you go forward and let God deal with it. Which is what happened next. Because see, God already showed me he can help me. He showed me he can provide for me. Without me even knowing it, he can send $3,000 to my door, and it can happen right now, right here, right now. It's done. He says, I can do that. So it wasn't very long because we're already living on the edge. We're trying to rent out the Rose Bowl Stadium. We're hiring all these bands. We're getting all the production in place. Our bank account, man, we're writing checks and saying, I hope it makes it to the bank or through the bank. I hope it don't bounce. I mean, we're doing this, and then all of a sudden, guess what? I'm missing another mortgage payment. What do? I learned from the last time, oh, God's going to provide right now, right? God's going to send the check in the mail. I'm good. No, I didn't. You know what I did? I went and said, God, where are you? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you helping me? Come on, I'm right in the same boat, right? Nothing changed. I'm still the same person that went from faith to fear within a matter of seconds. 0 to 60, right? I'm like, whoa, faith, fear, so quick. It's like I didn't learn anything. So God let me learn something big time this time. I kept praying to God, saying, God, where are you? Where are you? And guess what? You know what happened next? I got the notice in the mail. It says you missed your mortgage payment. God didn't provide. It happened again the second month, and the money didn't show up. We were just so much in debt now we couldn't catch up. Second month, God didn't provide. We're about to go into 3 months of mortgage payments. You know what's going to start happening? Foreclosure is going to start happening pretty soon. And then God provided. Now, this is going to go several times because God's teaching me something. It's going to continue. Satan is definitely hitting me financially, but God's using this to build me. He's using this to build me. You know why he has to build me? Because there's something going to happen. There's something going to happen in my life that I need to be strong. There's something going to happen in your life and you need to be strong. You know why you're going through so many trials and so many tribulations and so many things happening to you as a Christian, as a believer, as putting your faith in God? You know why? Because he's preparing you for something that you don't know about. He's getting you ready for something. And if you look in 1 Samuel 17, it talks about David. And David, a little bitty boy, was called to go against Goliath, this big giant. Now, I was trying to put this in perspective, and I started thinking, okay, he was about 9 feet tall, 9'9". I can't really put that in perspective until I really think about this. What's 9 foot tall? Now, I could put the stacks of Pepsi crates up here, but I'm 51 years old, and my knees are starting to, whatever. So I'm going to just give you this visual. Whenever we're doing our concerts and our events, whenever Chazzy and the band is up on the stage, and then you see that scaffolding that goes up, the scaffolding that holds the lights and the banners, that is 10 feet tall. So when you see Chazzy and them down here, and you see me down here, just so you get the perspective, right? Then there's this 10 feet tall. That's about how big Goliath is. And this little boy, David, is called to go out to feed his brothers. And he sees this Goliath, and he goes, what's that guy doing? Well, he's scaring us all to death. That's what he says. He says, oh, he's like putting down God. He's talking bad about God. He's doing all these bad things. He's threatening us. He's going to kill us. He's telling one of us to come out there and fight him. And David goes, I'll go. Well, you got to go see King Saul to be able to go out there and fight. Let me tell you. If you read through the story, there's something that David says to Saul. He goes to King Saul and he says, don't let anybody lose heart over this Philistine, this big giant. Don't let anybody lose heart over him. Me, David, a servant of God. I'll go out there and I'll fight that giant and I'll slew him. Can you imagine what it must have looked like when you got this little kid coming in there and you got this army, the Hebrew army is out there and none of them, the commanders, the soldiers, none of them will face this. And you got this little boy that his dad just said, hey, take your brother some food. And when he gets out there, he's ready to fight the giant. You know why? There's a reason why. Because David trusted God more than anybody. All those soldiers, all those men of God in the chosen nation of God, they all knew about God. They all had God, right? They all prayed. They all worshiped God. But you know what David had? David had a relationship with God. David had trusted God. Not only did he know about God, he trusted God. He put his faith in God. He actually talked to God. He sang songs to God. He heard from God. He listened to God, and he gave credit to God. And that's what happens in our life. We may know God, but if we don't experience God, we don't know what we got. If you read on down, David is talking to the king. and said, I was a shepherd boy. And when the lion and the bear came in to attack my lambs, I would have to fight them. And my God protected me because I killed the lion and I killed the bear. He said, my God protected me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear. You know what? No, let's go back to this time where you got this little boy out in the middle of the field, and there's this bear coming, and he's going to attack the lamb, and this little boy David goes out there, and I can't imagine what his emotions are, but I know me, and I know what I'd be feeling like. That's a big, big bear. God, where are you? Why are you sending this bear to hurt my sheep and my lambs? Why would you do this? That's where I would go with it. And I don't know where David was at this time, but I know this. I know that was a training ground for something that David didn't know what was going to happen later on. I know that whenever this bear came up to attack his sheep, to attack the lambs, and David had to confront him and kill the bear, I know that was a training ground for something David didn't know was coming in the future. And then there's this lion comes up, and the lion, can you imagine a lion? I have a Doberman. And when I walk into my house, that dog, it literally has a smile. You see his teeth. He just smiles at me. But you also see his teeth if he don't know who you are. But it's a different look. The teeth that he shows you are growling. And I'll tell you something. Just the fact of seeing that dog, and I don't know who he is, the fear that goes through my body. When I went to pick up this Doberman from a kennel that had all Dobermans, and those Dobermans will start barking and growling and just attacking the fence because they didn't know who I was, there's a fear. There's a fear I can't explain. I'm glad there's a fence in between you and me. How about going up to a lion coming in the open field and going to attack your sheep, and you got to protect your sheep from the lion. That's what David had to do. You know what? God sent a lion and sent a bear. He sent the trials. He sent the tribulations. He allowed this to take place. He didn't get in there and say, okay, this is not going to happen. Go away, bear. Go away, lion. No, he let the bear come. He let the lion come. And then God protected him through using him. And he destroyed the lion and he destroyed the bear. And he said to Saul, he goes, God has protected me from the hand or the paw of a lion and the paw of a bear. David knew where to give the credit, but you know what? Look at what happened. Because of that, there's not one person within the Israel army that is going to stand up to Goliath. But David stands up. Whenever you read the story of David and Goliath, you just read this and you say, how did David get to be so strong in his faith? How did he get to be so good at the slingshot? How did he get to be so confident that he could defeat this Goliath? How? Because of all the trials and the tribulations and the time he spent with God and the talking and the singing and the rejoicing and the praising and the worship. He knew it wasn't confidence in David. He had confidence in God because he said, God has protected me from the paw of the bear and the lion. He didn't say, I'm so good, I can take this guy down. No, he said, because of God, I can do it. Today, I want you to leave here with the realization that being a Christian does not mean it's going to be easy. Being a Christian means that you have God with you, and with God, all things are possible. Your strength comes from God. If you've given yourself to God and you say, God, take me, take everything that I have, I own nothing. I am your servant. I serve you. Everything that I own is yours. I'll use everything that I have for you. Trust him in that. Because from that moment forward, trials are going to come your way, but they're going to prepare you for something better. Tribulations are going to come your way, but they're going to prepare you to be able to do what God's called you to do. Struggles and financial problems and other issues that come along, your family, your friends, your neighbors are going to be watching you, and they're going to see, wow, I want the kind of faith that person has. How did they get that? And then you can tell them, because I defeated God helped me. God's power defeated the paw of a bear and the paw of a lion. People want to know how you got there? Tell them about your struggles. Tell them about your hard times. Tell them about how God went right through it with you. Don't worry about the times that you're going through. Prepare for what God's planning in your life. Prepare for greatness. Because what he's preparing you for now, you may not see for some time. But God's got a plan for each and every one of us. Don't let Satan steal that from you. Don't say you're too weak. You don't speak well. You're not tall enough. I'm using all my things. You know what? Just let God use you for who you are. Because it's not because of who you are that this is going to get done. It's because of who he is. You're a vessel. You're a servant. And he's going to use you. And greatness is going to happen because he is God. And you're going to see some wonderful things. And so you don't just know God, you experience God. And when people ask you, how do you know there's a God? Because I've experienced him. I've seen the work of his hands in my own personal life.